In this video, we are talking about the 2021 Chinese film Shoaling Boy. The main character of this story, Li, is a 6-year-old boy training in the Shaolin martial arts at a monastery. Li, who has been orphaned, has grown up at this monastery from a young age, learning kung fu martial arts along the way. One day, Li goes to the main hall of the monastery and apologizes to his seniors for what he is about to do next. This is because he has been forced to fight his senior monks to show his abilities. However, before he could even think, another senior monk suddenly attacks him from the side. Though Li is surprised, he manages to defend himself. Later, the senior monk tries to throw Li to the side, but Li manages to jump off the wall and continues to fight back, hitting his opponent hard. At this point, we realize that Li is not just an ordinary child. After a while, Li traps the senior monk in a basket made from a wooden staff and defeats him. Following this, another senior monk comes at Li with a weapon. Li skillfully fights back and eventually forces his opponent to drop his weapon and beats him. Next, Li approaches the final senior monk, who is meditating. Li attempts to attack, but the senior monk senses him and quickly blocks his strike. Li, unable to see, is hit for a moment before being thrown again to the side. However, Li skillfully evades and fights back, eventually winning the fight with his senior monk too. After this intense battle, Li leaves the hall with respect, having won the admiration of the 3 seniors. Afterward, the head monk of the monastery meets Li and informs him that he scored 88% on his martial arts examination, which is an excellent score compared to other students. Because Li has grown up at the monastery and trained here for so long, the head monk decides to send him to a school in the city to experience the outside world. Thus, Li gets ready to leave the monastery and go to the city for a new adventure. While living in the city, Li ends up living with the family of a famous scientist, who is friend of head monk. Then it's shown us a school which is Li supposed to go. A 15-year-old boy named Feng, who is the leader of a taekwondo association, and Shanshan, Feng's younger sister, who is in the 4th grade and always supports her brother in his competitions. Lan, the manager of the taekwondo association, watching Feng's matches and offering advice to improve his skills. It's clear that Lan has a crush on him, though she denies it when asked. Yu, Lan's younger brother, is obsessed with food above everything else. Since these 4 kids live close to each other, they spend a lot of time together, sharing fun and laughs. One day, while Lan's brother is playing with a packet of chips, Lan heads off to study the taekwondo tournament. Meanwhile, the family of Dr. Han, a famous scientist, is dealing with the loss of their mother many years ago, and now Han is working on some special devices to ease their pain. As Han works on his inventions, he learns that a criminal gang, known as the Mara Gang, is plotting to steal his special devices. He contacts his children and asks about their well-being, but father, understanding her concern, promises to return home quickly. He even tells them to open the gift box he sent, where they find toys and a special device Han made. But he don't know the gang looking for it. So, while they are talking, Li arrives and knocks on the door. After that, Lan goes inside to greet Li. Meanwhile, the mercenary group arrives at Dr. Han's location and takes him away, which is visible through a video call. However, the kids don't notice this. Unaware of the Mara Gang's plans, the leader of the gang, Larry, threatens Dr. Han to hand over the devices. However, Dr. Han insists that he only created a small device to help his children communicate with their mother's voice through AI technology. The Mara Gang leader doesn't trust Han's story, and while monitoring the house with CCTV, they discover that Han has indeed sent the device to his children. Meanwhile, Sloppy and Fist, being new recruits to the Mar team, had their first mission, so they disguised themselves and went to Lan's house. After a bit of a delay, Sloppy suggested to Fist that they should rush inside the house, but since they had no experience in breaking into a house, the next day when the kids went to school, Fist suggested they should wait until they went outside for school. Meanwhile, as Li was adjusting to the new environment and walking, he saw a taekwondo match on TV and became interested in it. After that, as Li was trying to meditate in his usual manner at night, he was playing a video game, and this started causing a disturbance. This made them realize it was hard to live together like this. However, after a while, Lan heard a loud noise from his brother's room, and when he came to check, he found Li and his younger brother finally playing a video game together. The kids realized that playing video games is the only way to make friends. Next, Lan went to his room and opened a box his father had sent him, but inside was a panda key tag. However, what he didn't know was that there was also a pen drive containing details about Mars' team. Next, Lon pressed the panda button, and it seemed to say the password. When Lon asked what the password was, these words were automatically entered as a new password. Later, Lon found out that the panda was actually an AI voice that resembled his mother's voice, and he really liked his father's gift. The next morning, when Lee, Yu, and Lon were getting ready to go to the new school, Sloppy and Fist watching the kids from inside the car. Sloppy noticed the panda key tag hanging from Lan's bag. They decided to steal it from her. On the way to school, they ran into Fong and his sister Shanshan, and Lon introduced Lee to them. As the group was talking, Sloppy arrived, snatched the key tag, and tried to escape, but Lee, after seeing this, started to chase Sloppy, hitting him. Fong, seeing Lee's skill, joined in and helped Lee recover the key tag. However, Sloppy, forgetting about his previous mistake, ran off with the key tag again. The kids then gathered and cornered Sloppy, not only teaching him a lesson but also pushing him into a dustbin. This scene was a lesson for Sloppy. The next scene shows teacher introducing Lee to the students at school. This is when the first monk student from the temple, who had joined the class, was seen, and the kids, curious and surprised, began asking questions about whether Lee would ever get married, and if he knew Kung Fu. At this point, the teacher, keeping silent, teacher said to the children you can see his Kung Fu skills in the physical education class. During that time, the coach mentioned there would be a physical fitness test next month, and those who didn't pass would have to stay in the same class for another year. Upon hearing this, Yu was unhappy, realizing it wouldn't be easy. The first task for the group was to run around the track, which Lee completed easily. The other kids struggled, but Lee, who had been doing this from a young age, finished 2 laps before the rest could complete one. After this, the coach asked everyone to do push-ups, and Lee, doing them effortlessly, showed off his strength. Meanwhile, the other kids struggled to complete even 2. Lee then showed his abilities, performing push-ups with just one arm and later balancing on one hand, impressing everyone. When it came time for everyone to do high jumps, Lee, who had learned from senior students, could jump high with ease. However, Yu tried and fell, face first into the ground. Meanwhile, in Dr. Han's laboratory, Larry was having fun, tying Han to a chair and hitting him with golf balls. That night, Sloppy and Fist broke into the house again to find the panda key tag. When Lee saw this, he tried to scare them by hiding, but as Sloppy and Fist began to cause trouble for Lee, the noise woke Lon, and as Mars' team was leaving with the panda key tag, Lee finally confronted them. Later, when Lee told Yu and Lon about what happened, they didn't believe him, thinking he was joking. Because the gang not coming for only key tag. The next scene shows Sloppy and Fist with the golf balls in their mouths and on the ground. It seemed unlikely that 2 thieves sneaked into the house to steal a wrong key tag. As Larry's patience grew thin, he began to get frustrated, planning to sell this special device in the next 3 days to his client. As Sloppy and Fist played with the golf balls in their mouths, they were threatened by Larry to finish their task. The next day, after school, during Taekwondo practice, Fong attacked his opponent, and the group of kids watched. Meanwhile, Yu and Shanshan talked about 2 girls they saw, who were disguised as Sloppy and Fist, eyeing Lan's bag. When the moment was right, they tried to grab the panda key tag from Lan's bag. At the same time, Lee was challenged to Fong for a fight, and everyone went to watch. This gave Mars' team the opportunity to sneakily grab the panda key tag from Lan's bag. However, their plan backfired when their fake hair got stuck in the bag while they tried to steal it. Meanwhile, we can see that both Fong and Lee are skilled fighters. In the end, they decide not to go too hard on each other and stop fighting, finishing their match. However, while turning around, they spot Sloppy and Fist, who are disguised as girls in uniforms, and try to catch them. But these mercenaries, holding a girl hostage, manage to escape with the panda key tag. After this, the kids go to the principal and report the incident. The police promise to do everything they can to catch the mercenaries. In the end, the panda key tag reaches the hands of the mercenaries, and now they're trying to open the program by plugging the pen drive into the computer. However, it requires a password, so they ask Dr. Han for it, but Han is reluctant to give it. After a full day of trying to crack the program, Larry becomes very agitated and begins to act aggressively. Larry sees that Dr. Han has received a message from Lon, telling him to come to his birthday tomorrow. Larry, thinking of threatening Han, replies to the message pretending to be Han, promising her to come home tomorrow. The next day, when Lan's friends come over to celebrate his birthday, Lon receives a message saying his father is waiting outside. Eager to meet him, Lon heads outside, but a group of people grabs her, throws him into a van, and starts driving off. Lee and his friends, seeing this, chase after the van on their bikes. Eventually, they arrive at Dr. Han's laboratory, where they begin searching for Lon. Meanwhile, Larry and his business partner are frustrated because they don't know the password to Han's device, making their deal unsuccessful. In a rush, Larry threatens Lon, holding a knife to his neck while asking for the password. When Lon asking them what the password was, the program finally opens, surprising everyone. Meanwhile, outside, Lee and Fong start fighting with Sloppy and Fist, and manage to knock them to the ground. However, it becomes difficult for them to continue their fight when they come face to face with Bradley, a skilled fighter and bodyguard, who works for Larry. At this moment, inside the laboratory, Larry and his business partner are preparing to finalize their deal. Just as they are about to complete the transaction, Yu sneaks into the lab and is able to help her father and brother escape while Lee arrives to fight with the mercenaries. During the fight, Larry grabs the suitcase containing the pen drive and runs out. Han, Yu, and Lon manage to catch up with him and are able to stop him. Together, they begin to beat him up. Meanwhile, Fong had already been struggling in fight with Bradley. Lee joins up with Fong to fight Bradley. Bradley easily knocks Lee to the ground and is about to strike him again. But Lee remembers the years of kung fu training he received and how his elders had advised him to use his martial arts skills to protect the ones he loves. Lee then resumes fighting, and with Feng's help, they defeat Bradley. Eventually, the police arrive and manage to apprehend the mercenaries, bringing the situation to a peaceful end. In the final scene of the story, the school principal honors Lee and Yu for their bravery and gives them awards. Gradually, Lee becomes accustomed to his new environment and begins spending time happily with his friends. This marks the end of the movie.